weareagoogler.com.
Today, we are cracking open the code behind California's schools. We're talking about a truly massive data system that keeps track of nearly 6 million students. You know, getting this right can mean everything for a student's future, and getting it wrong, well, that has some very real consequences.
So think about that for a second. How does a state with an economy bigger than most countries even begin to manage all of this? How do you make sure that a tiny rural school and, say, a huge urban high school are all treated fairly? The scale of this challenge is it's mind-boggling.
Well, the answer is a single, incredibly powerful system called CalPADS. This is it. This is the state's one official record for pretty much all things K-12 education. Every single student, every school, their entire story is written right here, in data.
I just love this metaphor. CalPADS isn't just some big database. It's the central nervous system of the whole education system in California. Every decision, every dollar, every report card, it all flows through this one system. And you can bet that if the data is off, the entire system feels it. Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to get a high-level look at the system's main data collections. Then, we'll dive into the Fall 1 report. That's the big one. It's where the money is. After that, we'll check out the end-of-year submissions, which are kind of like a performance review for schools. And finally, we'll tie it all together and see why this stuff really, truly matters.
All right, let's get into the weeds a little bit. CalPADS isn't a constant, real-time stream of data. It's more like a series of snapshots taken at really key moments throughout the year. We're going to focus on the three most important ones: the fall submission, which basically determines the budget, and the two end-of-year submissions that create the school's public report card.
First up is Fall 1, and honestly, the best way to think about this is as the annual financial snapshot. This one moment in time is what largely determines how much funding a school district is going to get for the entire year. So yeah, it's incredibly high stakes. And it all comes down to a single day, the first Wednesday in October. We call it Census Day. On this one specific day, the system takes what's called a point-in-time snapshot of every single student in the state. This makes sure that every school is measured on the exact same day, which creates a level playing field for all those funding calculations.
And here's the critical connection. The data from Census Day is the foundation for California's Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF. This is the system that pushes billions of dollars out to school districts. So the numbers from this one day, they directly impact a school's bottom line.
Now, the LCFF is specifically designed to give extra resources to schools that serve more students with greater needs. The formula targets extra, supplemental funding for three key groups: English learners, foster youth, and students from low-income families. So the more of these students a school serves, the more funding it gets to provide that extra support. In this system, every single student counts. You got to get that total enrollment number right. That's the baseline for everything. But it gets a little more nuanced than that. Because when it comes to those high-need students we just talked about, they are only counted one time, even if they happen to fall into multiple categories. And this brings us to a really critical concept. It's called the unduplicated pupil count, and this really shows you the logic of the system. Let's say a student is both an English learner and is eligible for free meals. They are not counted twice for extra funding. They're counted just once as a single, unique high-need student. This whole thing prevents overcounting and makes sure that funding is based on the actual number of individual students who need that extra support.
Okay, let's shift gears now to the end-of-year collections. If Fall 1 is all about the money, the EOY submissions are all about performance. This is where we see how schools are really doing, and it's where accountability really kicks in.
So unlike that one-day snapshot, the end-of-year collections tell the story of the entire school year, from the very first day to the last. This is the deep dive. We're talking about chronic absenteeism, discipline incidents, which students completed career tech pathways, graduation rates. I mean, it is the complete performance picture that shows whether students are on track and being properly supported. And the process was actually streamlined recently to make it a little more efficient. The old system had 4 different submissions, but now it's been simplified down to just 2. The first one, which is due in July, covers all that in-year data, like attendance and discipline. The second one, due in August, is all about the outcomes, things like graduation and course completion. The whole point of this change is to get that public report card out faster. And here's where the rubber really meets the road. Once a school's end-of-year data is submitted and processed, it becomes part of the official public record.
This data then flows directly to the California School Dashboard, which is basically the state's official report card for every single school. This is what everybody, parents, communities, policymakers, gets to see.
So, we've seen how the data gets collected, but let's wrap up by focusing on why getting this right is just so critically important for every single person who's involved in education.
I mean, the stakes here are incredibly high. Just look at this. Good data means a school gets the funding it's earned, a fair public image, and the ability to support the students who need it the most. Bad data? That's a recipe for disaster. Lost funding, a tarnished reputation, and a failure to serve the very students the whole system is meant to protect.
Because at the end of the day, we have to remember that this data is never, ever just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It represents the very funding that pays for that amazing history teacher, or the school counselor who makes such a difference, or the classroom aides who provide that critical one-on-one support. It's the data that unlocks targeted support, those specific programs that can genuinely change the entire trajectory of a student's life, especially for our English learners, our foster youth, and students from low-income families. And finally, this data becomes the school's public story. It shapes how the entire community sees its performance, its challenges, and its commitment to the future of its students.
You see, this data is so much more than just a collection of facts. It is the official story of a school year. It captures the challenges, the triumphs, and the outcomes. So the next time you see a school report card, you'll know the incredible complexity behind those numbers. And that brings us to one final crucial question. What story is your school's data telling?